A loud rip cuts through the quiet halls of Ashworth Palace. It sounds like a gunshot. On the cold marble floor lies a wedding dress. It is not just any dress, it is 300 years old. It was worn by queens. Now it is torn into pieces. Standing over the ruined dress is a proud woman. Her name is Duchess Constance. She has a big smile on her face. She thinks she just won. She does not know she is being watched. She does not know a camera saw everything. She does not know the palace guards are already walking toward her right now. In 60 seconds, her whole world will fall apart. A perfect wedding day is about to turn into an arrest that will shock the whole country. Her name was Ellie Marsh. She grew up in a small town. Her house was small too. Her mom and dad were not rich. Her dad worked at a factory. Her mom cleaned houses for other people. Ellie did not grow up with servants. She did not grow up with fancy dinners. She grew up doing her own homework at a small kitchen table. She grew up washing her own clothes. She grew up saving small coins in a jar. Ellie was smart. She studied hard. She went to college on a scholarship. She worked 2 jobs to pay her bills. She never asked her parents for money because she knew they did not have any extra to give. She learned to be strong on her own. She learned to stand tall even when life was hard. One day, Ellie got a job at a small bookshop near the palace gardens. She loved books. She loved quiet mornings with a cup of tea and a good story. She did not know that her whole life was about to change forever. One rainy afternoon, a tall man walked into the shop. He wore a plain coat. He did not look like a prince. He looked like any normal man trying to stay dry from the rain. His name was Prince Julian, but Ellie did not know that yet. She just saw a kind man looking for a book about old maps. They talked for a long time. He made her laugh. She made him feel normal, like a regular person, not a prince. He came back the next day, and the day after that. Slowly, without even knowing it, they fell in love. When Ellie found out he was a real prince, she was shocked. She almost ran away from the idea. She thought, this is too big for me, I am just a normal girl. But Julian held her hand and said something she never forgot. He said, I don't want a princess, I want you. They dated in secret for almost 2 years. They wanted to protect their love before the whole world started talking about it. But secrets like that do not stay hidden forever. One day, a newspaper found out. The story went everywhere. Cameras followed Ellie to work. Cameras followed her to the grocery store. Cameras followed her to her own front door. Her quiet, simple life was gone in one single day. But something good happened too. The public loved her. They saw a normal girl who worked hard and never gave up. They called it a real-life fairy tale. A prince and a girl from a small town. People all over the country smiled when they saw her face on the news, but not everyone smiled. Inside the palace walls, one woman did not smile at all. That woman was Prince Julian's mother, Duchess Constance. Duchess Constance came from a very old family. Her family owned land that went back hundreds of years. Big houses, big farms, big castles in the countryside. To her, that kind of history was everything. She believed that only people with old money and big titles deserved to marry into the royal family. For 10 years, Duchess Constance had a plan. She wanted her son Julian to marry a woman named Lady Priscilla Thorne. Lady Priscilla came from a very rich family too. Her family also owned huge pieces of land. In Constance's mind, Priscilla was the perfect match. Priscilla was proper. Priscilla knew the royal rules. Priscilla was, in her words, one of us. When Ellie showed up, all of that planning fell apart in one moment. Constance was furious. She felt like her 10 years of quiet planning had been thrown away. She did not see a sweet, hardworking girl. She saw a threat. She saw an outsider. She saw someone who did not belong. From the very first day, Constance started a quiet war. It was not loud. It was not obvious. It was small and sneaky, the kind of thing that is easy to deny later. She forgot to invite Ellie to small family dinners. She made little comments about Ellie's clothes, saying they looked cheap, even when they did not. She whispered things to other important people at parties, planting little seeds of doubt about Ellie. Julian tried to protect Ellie from all of it. Whenever his mother said something cruel, he stood right beside Ellie and held her hand tighter. But the more he protected Ellie, the more his mother's anger grew. She felt like she was losing her son. And a woman like Constance did not like to lose anything. 6 weeks before the wedding, something happened that made things even worse. The king, who was Julian's own uncle, called Ellie and Julian into his private study. The king had grown very fond of Ellie over the past 2 years. He liked her honesty. He liked how down-to-earth she was. He liked that she made his nephew truly happy. In that private meeting, the king made a big decision. He said that because Ellie's own father had passed away years before, He himself would walk Ellie down the aisle on her wedding day. It was a huge honor. It showed the whole country that the king fully accepted Ellie as family. When Constance heard this news, something inside her snapped. To her, this was the final insult. The king was treating this nobody like she belonged at the very top of the family. That night, alone in her private rooms, Constance made a decision. She would not let this wedding happen the way everyone wanted. She would find a way to stop it, or at least ruin it before it was too late. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss what happens next. Now let's get back to the story. The wedding gown was not just any dress. It was a piece of royal history. It was made from soft ivory silk, over 300 years old. It had been sewn by hand with real silver thread. It was covered in more than 2,000 tiny diamonds, each one shaped like a small teardrop. This dress had only been worn 3 times in history, always by women who later became queen. It was kept locked away in a special cold room deep inside the royal archives, where the temperature was always kept just right so the old fabric would not fall apart. The dress was worth more money than most people could ever imagine, more than 30 million pounds. When Constance found out that Ellie planned to wear this exact dress, it felt like fuel added to a fire that was already burning inside her. In her mind, a girl from a small factory town had no right to wear something so old, so precious, so connected to real royal blood. But Ellie did not just want to wear the old dress in its old shape. She wanted to make it her own too. She worked closely with a kind dress designer named Madame Renault. Together, they decided to gently combine the old historic skirt with a new modern top, something sleek and simple, something that felt like Ellie but still honored the dress's long history. Madame Renault and her team worked for many days, very carefully. They folded and pinned the old fabric onto a new soft, modern base. They used the biggest, most beautiful pieces of old lace, folding them gently so nothing would tear. They created a design that looked like 200 years of history hugging something brand new. It was stunning. Everyone who saw it in progress said it looked like magic. The morning of the wedding finally came. It was early, around 9 in the morning. The final dress was ready. It stood tall on a wooden stand in a private dressing room, glowing softly under the morning light. Nobody knew that in just a few hours, that beautiful dress would lie in pieces on the cold palace floor. That morning, Ellie was in the middle of getting her hair and makeup done. She felt a strange, small feeling in her stomach, like something was wrong. She could not explain it. She just felt it. She stepped away from her chair for a moment. She wanted to check on her dress one more time, just to see it, just to feel calm again. She walked down the quiet hallway toward the private dressing room where the gown was kept. As she reached for the door handle, the door suddenly swung open on its own, hard and fast, almost knocking her backward. Standing right there in the doorway was Duchess Constance. Constance's face looked strange. Her eyes were wide. Her hands were shaking a little. Behind her, in the middle of the room, the priceless dress lay on the floor. It was torn into pieces. The silk was ripped. The old lace hung loose and broken. Diamonds were scattered across the marble like little stars fallen from the sky. For a moment, Ellie could not even speak. She simply stared at the wreckage of a dress that took months to prepare and hundreds of years to create. Constance spoke first, her voice cold and sharp. "It seems the old fabric was simply too weak to hold itself together," she said with a small, cruel smile. "What a shame. It looks like you won't be playing the queen today after all." Ellie did not cry. She did not scream. She did not fall apart the way Constance expected her to. Instead, something inside Ellie became very calm, very clear, very strong. Her eyes moved slowly from the ruined dress back up to Constance's smug face. "You didn't just ruin my wedding dress, Constance," Ellie said quietly. Her voice was steady, almost eerily calm. There was a new kind of steel in it, a strength that made even the Duchess feel a small chill run down her spine. What Constance did not know in that exact moment was that a small security camera high in the corner of the hallway had already caught everything. It had captured the sound of tearing fabric. It had captured Constance's own words as she admitted what she had done. And right at that very second, footsteps were already echoing down the hall, heavy and steady, coming closer and closer. A deep voice called out from behind Ellie in the hallway. "Duchess Constance," the voice said firmly. Ellie stepped aside. Standing there, flanked by 4 members of the Royal Palace Guard, was a tall officer named Captain Miles Hardy. His face showed no emotion at all, just cold, calm duty. "The crown," Constance snapped, trying to push past him. You cannot speak to me this way. You are not, Captain Hardy replied simply. Then, right behind him, someone else stepped forward. It was King Edmund himself. The king had heard everything. Word had traveled fast through the palace. He looked at the torn dress on the floor. He looked at his own sister-in-law, standing there with pieces of ruined silk near her feet. His face was full of quiet, deep disappointment. Captain Hardy pulled a pair of heavy steel handcuffs from his belt. Duchess Constance, you are under arrest, he said. The metal cuffs clicked shut around her wrists. The sound echoed down the long marble hallway, loud enough for the wedding staff and event planners nearby to hear every word. Desmond Cole on the phone immediately, Constance shouted, her voice bouncing off the old stone walls. This is an illegal arrest. You cannot hold a member of this family without formal charges. But under an old royal law called the Crown Preservation Act, destroying a sovereign artifact on purpose was treated as a very serious crime, not just a small family argument. The heavy guards walked Constance out through a side hallway, away from the main event, so the wedding guests would not see. But word still spread like wildfire through every phone and every whisper in the building. Meanwhile, a brilliant idea came to Ellie's mind. She turned to Madame Renault. For the evening reception, Ellie said, her eyes suddenly full of new inspiration. You designed that other modern dress for me too, the sleek one. It has a beautiful structured shape and the color matches the ivory of the old silk perfectly. Madame Renault gasped softly. You want to combine them? She asked. To rebuild the dress using the pieces that survived, Ellie turned to King Edmund. Your Majesty, with your permission, we don't rebuild the past exactly the way it was. We adapt it. We take what is broken and we make something even stronger. King smiled with pride. Do it, he said simply. Madame Renault and a team of 6 assistants worked with lightning speed. They took the large surviving pieces of the historic skirt and gently draped them over the new, modern dress underneath, using small platinum pins to hold the 300-year-old fabric onto the fresh, sleek design. The contrast was beautiful, old history sitting proudly on top of something brand new, just like Ellie herself, an ordinary girl now wearing centuries of royal history without losing who she truly was. By 10:30 that morning, a scuff mark on the hem had been carefully cleaned. By 10:45, Captain Hardy knocked gently on the door. 5 minutes, everyone, he said. The motorcade is ready. Because Ellie's own father had passed away years earlier, King Edmund himself walked her down the long aisle, just as he had promised weeks before. Are you ready to make history, Ellie? The king asked softly as they stood at the tall palace doors. Ellie smiled, her eyes bright and fierce despite everything that had just happened. Let's go show them what surviving looks like, Your Majesty, she whispered back. The wedding was beautiful. Crowds outside the palace gates cheered loudly as the newly married Duke and Duchess, Julian and Ellie, shared their first kiss on the balcony of Ashworth Palace. Flashing cameras, cheering crowds, happy tears everywhere, but far below in a cold, quiet holding room, the woman who used to be called Duchess sat completely alone. No silk dress now, no fancy title. No son standing beside her, just silence and the heavy weight of her own choices. The change happened fast, faster than Constance ever expected. One moment she was inside the beautiful, velvet-lined halls of Ashworth Palace. The next moment she was standing inside the cold, plain walls of Greymoor Prison. For the first 2 days, Constance refused to eat or speak to anyone. The prison guards, 2 quiet officers named Miller and Davies, simply ignored her constant, angry demands. I demand my lawyer, she screamed over and over, her voice bouncing off the hard concrete walls. Get Desmond Cole on the phone right now. This is an illegal detention. You cannot hold a member of the royal family without formal charges. Eventually, the heavy steel door did open. In walked a man named Simon Ashford, the Crown's very own chief legal advisor. But instead of coming to help her, he came with different news entirely. He explained, in a calm and simple way, that because she had destroyed a piece of royal property on purpose and openly admitted it while a camera recorded her words, the Crown itself could no longer protect her legally. She was now facing this on her own. Meals started sliding through a small metal slot in the door, plain and cold. No more royal chefs. No more warm meals served on golden plates. The monarchy, in every practical way, had completely cut ties with her. Realizing that no royal rescue was coming to save her, Constance changed her plan completely. She moved from quiet denial to full, loud warfare. If the king would not protect her, she decided, she would try to destroy the crown's reputation instead. Using her one allowed phone call each day, she reached out to a sharp, aggressive lawyer named Nigel Ashford, a man known across the country for defending wealthy people in very difficult, scandalous cases. Please don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying the story so far, and hit that subscribe button so you catch every twist coming up next. Nigel Ashford was smart, and he knew exactly how to win in the public eye, not just in a courtroom. He leaked carefully chosen little pieces of the story to newspapers that he knew would be friendly to Constance's side. Slowly, a very different story started to spread. The headlines began to shift. "Did the crown break the Duchess?" one newspaper asked. "Inside Constance's secret mental health battle," read another. The story being told now was not about a proud woman who destroyed a priceless family heirloom out of jealousy. Instead, it painted her as a deeply worried, loving mother pushed to a moment of sudden panic by a scheming, social-climbing woman who was tearing her family apart. "The tragic fall of a mother's love," one big headline read. Because of this, the public, always a little unpredictable and always hungry for royal drama, started to split right down the middle. Protests began outside the palace gates. Some people held up signs demanding, "Free the Duchess." Others held banners that read, "Down with the commoner." Talk show hosts argued back and forth on television, some asking whether Ellie had somehow provoked the whole meltdown on purpose, just to remove Constance from power inside the family. The blame game was running at full speed. Inside the palace, King Edmund's own advisors quietly begged him to consider some kind of quiet plea deal, something that would make the whole messy story simply disappear from the news before it got any bigger. But Ellie had a very different idea entirely. "He leaked those statements to hurt me," Ellie said firmly, sitting beside her husband. "But we don't hide from this. We send a message to the whole world that if you have enough money and a fancy title, the laws of this country still apply to you just the same as everyone else." She continued, her voice never shaking. "Constance wanted to humiliate me on a global stage. Fine, let her have the global stage. Let the whole public see exactly who she really is without any spin, without any excuses." Julian held his wife's hand tightly and looked straight at his uncle, the king. "No plea deals," he said firmly. "Royal pardons. We take this to trial, and we let the truth decide what happens." King Edmund smiled with quiet, deep pride at the strength shown by both his nephew and his new niece. He slammed the case file shut on his desk. "Let it go to trial," the king announced. "Let the whole world watch." The trial became the biggest news story the country had seen in years. Every single television channel covered it live. People all across the country gathered around their televisions each morning just to watch. Nigel Ashford tried every clever trick he knew. He argued that Constance had been suffering from deep stress for months. He argued that years of family pressure had finally broken her mind for one single, unfortunate moment. He brought in doctors who talked for hours about anxiety and public pressure faced by royal family members. But then, the security footage was shown to the entire courtroom and to the entire watching country. It was clear. It was simple. It showed Constance calmly walking into the dressing room. It showed her deliberately grabbing the fabric with both hands. It showed her tearing it apart piece by piece, slowly, with no signs of panic at all. And it captured her very own voice, cold and proud, saying the cruel words she had spoken to Ellie right afterward. There was no denying it any longer. The video did not lie. Constance's own words, caught clearly on that little camera, painted the full picture for everyone to see. Ellie herself took the witness stand. She did not raise her voice. She did not act angry or bitter. She simply told the truth, calmly and clearly, about years of small, cruel comments, about being quietly left off guest lists on purpose, about years of feeling unwelcome in her own new family, simply for being born into a normal, hard-working home instead of an old, wealthy one. Her words touched people deeply across the entire country. Millions of ordinary people, people who also grew up without money, without fancy titles, without big family names, saw a piece of themselves in Ellie's simple, honest story. After many long days of testimony, the jury reached their final decision. Constance was found guilty of willfully destroying a protected piece of royal property, a serious crime under old royal law. The judge looked directly at her as he read the final sentence. Because of her position and the size of the crime, she received several years in prison, along with the permanent loss of her royal title. As the guards led her away for the very last time, Constance did not look proud anymore. She did not look powerful. She simply looked like a tired, broken woman who had lost absolutely everything because of one moment of blind, ugly jealousy. If you're loving this story, make sure you like this video right now. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next big story. Months passed quietly after the trial ended. Life at Ashworth Palace slowly returned to a gentler, calmer rhythm. Ellie and Julian settled into their new life together, stronger now than ever before, having survived something so painful together and come out even closer on the other side. The famous wedding dress, the one that had been torn apart and then lovingly rebuilt in just a few short hours, was placed on permanent public display inside the Royal Museum. A small golden sign beside it told the whole story simply and honestly, explaining how an old piece of royal history had been broken, and then made new again, blending the old with the new, just like Ellie's own journey from a small, quiet town into the heart of the royal family. Lady Priscilla Thorne, the woman Constance had once hoped Julian would marry, later sent Ellie a kind, private letter. She said she had never wanted any part of Constance's plans, and she wished the young couple nothing but happiness for the years ahead. Ellie wrote back, warm and forgiving, and the two women slowly became unlikely friends over time. As for Constance, she served her time quietly in prison, far away from the golden halls she once called home. Julian visited her only once, near the very end of her sentence. He did not come with anger in his heart. He came simply to tell her that he still loved her as his mother, but that he would never again allow her cruelty to hurt the woman he loved. Ellie, for her part, never let bitterness take root inside her heart. Instead, she used her new position and her new voice to help other girls from small towns and simple, hardworking families, showing them that where you come from never decides where you are allowed to go in life. Years later, when people spoke about the day the royal wedding dress was torn apart, they no longer only remembered the cruelty behind it. They remembered something else entirely, something far more powerful. They remembered a quiet, hardworking girl who did not scream, did not cry, and did not run away. She simply stood tall, spoke the truth, and let her strength speak far louder than anyone else's cruelty ever could. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If this story moved you even a little, please give it a like, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. We'll see you in the next story.